It's time for Second Watch with Rod Babers. Rod Babers, former Longhorn, former NFL player, gives a second watch of the game the day after. Rod, you uncovered some nuggets you want to share with folks today. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Duck Camp. Rod, you spent most of your time on the offense because Texas exploded for 24 points in the second half in the win over the Aggies, 27-17. You basically said there were three reasons you think for this offensive breakout from the Horns in that second half. What did you see, my man? What's the first thing you want to talk about?
Oh man, that was so much, right? This is a fun rewatch too. I think the number one thing that stood out. I mean, how can you not ignore the run game for Texas? Guys, I think that was the best run game performance they've had all season long against anybody. I would dare you to find a better one. I know you can look at the Oklahoma game was was pretty impressive. Look at the Ohio State game you rushed for like 160 plus, but you had 10 plus yard runs, which that is categorized as an explosive run. So 10 plus yard runs. The other game, I think, where you had at least 10 plus yard runs was the Sam Houston State game, where you were able to pull that off. And I mean, and it was of a lot of. I mean, you had a variety in that group. I mean, you had a couple of scrambles from Arch. You had quarterback design runs on the split quarterback zone out of empty. And you had the wham play. You had a couple of pin and pull plays. Of course, you had your outside zone play. I think there's an inside zone play as well. So that was variety in Texas in the run game versus A&M. And that was a little bit surprising. Last year, you ran the ball on them really well, too, but it was mostly just outside zone and something they couldn't stop. They ran the outside zone, but it was a lot of other variety of concepts that they were able to utilize. I think that's because they got Arch Manning, who also provides another element, another weapon for you as a +1 in the run game. So I really did. I think that ultimately that's something you can be proud of, is that you had your best run game performance of the season at the end of the season against a rival, against one of the best defenses in the country. And give Sark credit too. A lot of it was something else I want to talk about was on him, because he was stubborn with it. He did not, we've seen that from Sark at times. He is a little bit stubborn about trying to maybe win it a certain way. That was not the case at all. And he said that, by the way. He said that this week. He said the week of the game, he said, when he was asked, hey, Sark, are you going to stick with the run game in the A&M game? And he said, we're going to do whatever it takes to win. And ironically, that ended up being him sticking with the run game. But give him a lot of credit, because they started out that game. Remember, they were throwing the football. I'll say I thought Texas would be, best advised in that game to open it up with the passing game and be pass first. And they did early on in the game. I mean, you had 4 running back runs in the first quarter. You had 8 running back runs in the first half. And for Wiseman, I think you had 5 runs for him. And then ultimately Sark figured out, all right, that's what's working. And you ended up with 23 pass attempts in the first half. 8 pass attempts for Arch in the second half total. He recommitted himself to the run game. And I don't think it was because that's how Sark thought they would win. I think he thought they would win offensively by being a pass first team, opening up that way, taking advantage of some of the matchups he liked on the outside. And I'll give him a ton of credit for the adjustment was, no, that's not it. What's working right now is the run game. And he said they would do anything that they had to do to win the game. That's exactly what they did. They ran the rock, and I thought Sark did a really good job providing some cheat codes in the running game. A lot more misdirection and motion involved with juicing up the run game in the second half. You go think about all those big runs you had. There was misdirection, a lot of motion. Even that Nick Townsend wham block, that came in. He utilizing, obviously some of the staple core traits of the Sark offense, but weaponizing them in the run game instead of the passing game is what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, look, rushing for more than 200 yards against your rival is in the last game of the season is enforcing your will on the opponent. Yeah. Number 3 ranked team came to Austin and got spanked and sent home. because of the run game, and most definitely. I mean, there are other parts of this. Trey Wisner, by the way, 19 rushes, 155 yards. Yeoman's work from him and that offensive line yesterday. All right, Rod, you said that the run game is one. The second thing you wanted me to talk about or lead you into, according to our pre-game discussion, was Arch and the scramble drill and how that really separates him and what he's able to do against an A&M defense that likes to come after the passer.
Yeah, I know we know he's really good at it. We obviously, I think this kind of matches the eye test all season long, but his off-schedule second reaction ability, it may be one of his top, if not his best X-Man quality as a player. And it was on display in the Arkansas game, by the way, as well. You had a touchdown on the scramble drill in that game as well. But the touchdown to Ryan Wingo in this game, where he's like the awareness to know exactly where the line of scrimmage was because there's nobody around him. So he was obviously locked in downfield and had to know exactly where the line was. I mean, he ended up being within like a half a yard of the line of scrimmage before he threw it. So he's got a great kind of natural awareness and instinct when he's off schedule, out of the pocket, off script. And so he ended up in those scrambles early on. Remember, your best offensive play early on was him scrambling, right? He had 3 scrambles for 32 yards. With 3 first downs via the scramble, 3 of them. You ended up over 10 yards per rush on scrambles. 2 of those were 10 part of your 10+ yard runs. And on the scramble drill, by the way, he was 1 of 3 on the scramble drill. And I count scramble drill when he's either outside the pocket or when the wide receiver has to break off their initial route and start with the drill because he starts like moving around in the pocket to buy himself time. So I'll just throw you out by my definition of the scramble drill. So he's 1 of 3 in the scramble drill. But remember, one of those plays, I'm sure everybody does, he's down close to the red zone and he has easily 6 yards, but he ends up throwing that ball in the dirt to Emmett Mosley in the back of the end zone there. And I don't know. That was one of his probably worst plays in the scramble drill because he easily he might have picked up the first down knowing how athletic he is, but he easily could have made it I think it was a 2nd and long. He easily could have made it a very 3rd and like short.
3rd and makeable. Yeah.
Yeah, 3rd and manageable. But that was like it's one of his worst plays in the scramble drill. So in this game, he was 6 plays for 61 yards in the scramble drill total. That gives you over 10 yards per play. Last two games, he's at 10 yards per play because I got him with 9 total because I had him with 3 of those in the Arkansas game. There were one rush, I believe, and he had 2 scramble drill plays, and one of those being that touchdown that he threw to Judge Moore. So versus Power 4 opponents on the season, my last time I clocked, I think he's right at 10 yards per play on scramble drill throws and scramble runs combined. Like that's to me, that means you should encourage that more. Like that it's a reason that when you played Kirby Smart, he brought it up in pregame media availabilities or before that Texas Georgia game, and you did not see Arch have any scramble drill or scramble plays in that game. None.
Yeah.
They made sure, no, we gonna knock that. Because honestly, that's how his run got started. That's when he got confident. It was that scramble drill touchdown to Ryan Wingo, and it was like, all right, now Arch is getting going. You cannot allow him to get going off script. Even though scramble runs in the first half, that was the only thing working for him. Other than that, he's like 3 yards per attempt, something like that. Other than that, everybody's dogging him, man. You didn't do a damn thing. But if he stayed alive, you allowed his confidence to at least stay somewhat, I would say manageable, where he didn't go into a hole or spiral because he was able to make some plays. Those were first down runs, those scrambles that he had, and he kept drives alive. So I think Kirby Smart was on to something. It's like, no, you can't let him scramble. You can't let him, and you can't allow him to execute the scramble drill. And the receivers, give them credit too. They're getting better at it the more they have gotten to know Arch. But I do think it's one of the main weapons Texas has used this season. And I think it's something that Sark is encouraging, which is a good thing.
Hey, Rod, before we go to the third thing, I want to mention our sponsor. The third thing, by the way, is going to be interesting to hear because I think it comes down to coaching. But our sponsor, Duck Camp. It's made for gear. It's gear made for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that I'm wearing here today, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop at duckcamp.com. And On Texas users, make sure you use promo code ONTexas25 for 25% off. Remember, Christmas just around the corner. Make sure you use code ONTexas25 for 25% off. Again, that's duckcamp.com. Hey, Rod, next piece for you that I think I want to ask you about, I guess. You said the third part of this equation for Texas against the Aggies on offense were tendency breakers. What I can think of some right off the hand, and it makes me think that maybe Steve Sarkisian got the better of Mike Elko in this one. Well, and the offensive coach actually outdoing the defensive coach. What were your thoughts and your tendency breakers, I guess?
Well, I think the one that stands out the most, of course, is the Nick Townsend fly sweep handoff, which was, I mean, Nick Townsend this season, like I said, targets. I mean, you got to be talking about targets and touches. Somebody who's got to be in the single digits for Texas. And maybe you can count them on one hand for the most part. I think he had one rush or something on the season at the time. Like he really hadn't been that much of a factor other than a guy coming in to block for you. So for Sark to give him a play where he's basically the featured athlete on a play, there's no way the Aggies could have been expecting it. So that's the number one tendency breaker. And I'll give Sark a lot of credit because in the red zone, where Texas had issues before, in the red zone, we know that, and especially on goal line situations, it was nice to see him use his creativity and to weaponize a player like that in the athleticism. Jerry's talked about it a lot about how athletic Nick Townsend is, to use him in that situation. I've talked about him being the cowboy back for Texas, and I do think that's kind of in that cowboy back role where you're a tight end, you're an H back, you're a full back. You know, that's no telling what you could end up being at the end of the day, but you could end up being a weapon at any time. So I like that one. Even the touchdown for Arch. I mean, not very often did you see, split zone quarterback run like that out of empty formation. Texas likes to run out of empty formation with the quarterback. They've done that before. But I think the timing of it for Sark was really good in that moment out of empty. So I think that was something, maybe not as true tendency breaker, but I think it was the timing of the call for Sark kind of showed he was in the groove with his feel of the game. And I think that's something too that in this game that, I'll give Sark a lot of credit for. I think his feel of the game was off in the first half. And then I think at the halftime, he really started to get in tune with the game and the flow of it and where it was going. And, kind of the prime example of him being a little bit off in the first half was that last drive for Texas in the first half where, it looked like a little clunky. They got down where they could have gotten in field goal range, put some points on the board, but Sark got a little greedy and wanted a big play and went big game hunting. And, they ended up taking a sack and some lost yardage, and then it just ended up kind of blowing up in their face. I thought Sark's feel of the game in the second half was really good. And that's when you broke out, I said, a lot of the tendency breakers. I do know the tendency breaker early on because you've thrown to Ryan Wingo on a wide receiver screen on the first play of the game for 5 straight games. That just takes a lot of scones, by the way. So just get started right there. So I guess you can say he started out with a tendency breaker because it was a double pass. I didn't like that call, by the way. Sark just said, you know what? Hey, it's just like any other call, which I get. I didn't hate the call, but I think it was predictable that you were going to do something on that play. Like everybody knew, everybody knew, like, you're going to do something. you ain't just gonna just throw it to Ryan Wingo again. You're gonna do something that you're gonna stack the concept somehow. So I thought that was predictable. The fact that he was going to use that play and have a counter off of it, and then he ran. I would say give him. He ran it again. Everybody in the football world was wondering, is he gonna run the same play again? And he ran the same concept, not the same play, but the same concept again. A wide receiver screen to Ryan Wingo. So I'll give that was something that I'll give him credit because I knew he was going to do something with it, and they still decided, all right, let's see if the Aggies are going to be susceptible to it. But defense, they also had a tendency breaker.
I was going to say, you said there was a tendency breaker on defense that caught your eye as well, particularly in the second half. What was that?
The tendency breaker on defense was in the second half. I saw them play a lot of too high shell coverage, and that's with two deep safeties. In Texas, since they brought in obviously different coach. PK has been, I think, a great coach, but since they brought in Nansen, the Nansen influence, PK has been more of a single high coverage coordinator and play caller, where they play a lot of just one deep safety, probably 60 to 65% of the time. I'd say is easily a safe guess. It could be higher than that. When Nansen was at Arizona, they were playing it like something like close to 75, 80% of the time. Again, nobody in the country played single high coverages more. And so that Nansen influence, I think, has really helped PK master some of the single high principles. And he's using a lot more of those, help them be aggressive in the run game and help them really to kind of use that extra guy either in the box or use that extra guy in another creative way and not just play with a safe, conservative, too high shell. But in this game, in the first half, that was the case. Same Texas we've always seen, just at least in the last couple of years. Playing a single high safety, dedicating that extra man in the box, stopping the run first, and being a kind of a run stop first team. Like they want to stop the run, and that's what they're doing with their extra guy most of the time. In the second half, I thought it was just some designer stuff they were doing early on. They started playing a lot of too high shell safeties, and that was honestly that they did it probably half the reps and half the snaps in the second half. Go back and watch. Now it could have been because they felt like, all right, we got a lead, and we ain't giving up no cheap stuff. You talked about injuries in the secondary, Bobby. Could have been that. But like, all right, we got some injuries in the secondary, guys going down. Let's just support the secondary as much as we can because so we don't put them in a compromising position. It could have been schematic where he thought, all right, this is my adjustment from the first half. This is my counter. All right, a lot of single high. That's probably what they're game planning for. Nope, we're coming out with too high. Like I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning is. Be great, Texas doesn't get to talk to the coordinators, so but I don't know exactly what it was. I would say. Saying it's just to protect the lead, I don't know if I'd just say that because the lead wasn't.
Is it respecting the speed on the outside of A&M?
Yeah, it could be that. Like I said, I'm not just going to go with them protecting the lead because they didn't have that big of a lead to protect for most of the second half. That came kind of in a run by Texas. I'm going to say that it was either schematic or I like well, you brought up the injuries in the secondary. I think they were thinking, we can't get beat deep then. If we got nothing against those guys, but if you got Roberson out of the corner, you're going to put Gilbo out there sometimes. You got guys that you may not know that you can trust necessarily in isolated one-on-one situations. Let's put them in easier situations. Safeties over the top, cover two, two-man, cover four quarters, stuff like that. So I think situationally, they still challenged the receivers, though, which I liked. You saw third downs, then they would blitz. Sometimes they would play press. Play man coverage on third downs and critical downs. But for the most part, Texas in that second half played a lot of two deep safeties. And I thought actually did it really well too. And I would say most of that time we saw the Aggies in a desperation mode to throw the football. And maybe Texas was thinking, well, if they're going to throw the football and we're going to keep the pressure on them, let's make sure we give ourselves some insurance on the back end, not give us something easy over the top. So I just say it was just, I don't know the reason, but it was a really interesting tendency break because I don't think Texas has played that much too high safety, too high shell in any game so far this year. Like it was, like I said, easily 50% of the snaps, I think.
Rod, you've chronicled how much the tight end has hurt Texas from opposing teams this season. It didn't feel that way last night. Is perhaps that too high safety look impact that a little bit more because they can't hit the seams as easily? I mean, what do you think of that conversation?
I believe their tight ends ended up with targets, total 6 targets, 4 receptions on those 6 targets for 51 yards. So I do remember a couple of big plays.
But it wasn't as much where it actually
exactly
absolutely hurt Texas.
Yeah, in the last few games, you've had tight ends actually they have been the engine of the passing game for some of these teams. Arkansas tight ends had their best performance, and Mississippi State tight ends did really well. Vanderbilt, of course, tight end went off. So I would say that either it's been it was something that Texas either addressed because it became so obvious that it was something that teams were attacking, or like you said, the too high shell, because both your interceptions came in too high shell coverages. The interception from Taft, of course, he was deep in reading the quarterback and kind of in a vision safety mode where he didn't really have any responsibility other than, hey, take anything deep. And other than that, I'm reading the quarterback, and he was reading the quarterback's eyes the whole way. And then the Kobe Black interception where Kobe Black is underneath number 1 because he's got a safety over the top. So he's cheating, looking and reading number 2. Number 2 runs that deep out, and then he comes right underneath it, makes a great play. Quarterback thinks he's going to seek deeper with number 1. He decides he's already looking at the number 2 receiver, and then makes a great play on the football. So that you made 2 really good plays in your deep 2 shell coverage. And I think give PK a lot of credit because I think his feel of the game. Hey, you know what? You can't necessarily go, all right, you know what, we're going to have run defense out there on first down, second down. Well, that's kind of a 50-50 depending on what the yardage is and how we deal on first down. And then at third down, we're going to have our third down defense out there. If you go that route, you're too predictable. So I think ultimately it could have been a change up for PK. And it also, I think, helped neutralize the tight ends because, nobody got deep on that defense when you got 2 high shell safeties, and your pass rush was able to get home and harass Marcel Reed before they were able to get anything downfield anyway. So
PK,
credit.
Hey, Rod, you mentioned PK. PK is 5-0 against Colin Klein as offensive versus defensive coordinator. 3 years at Kansas State, 2 years now at Texas A&M. Good stuff there for the Longhorns. I wanted to add one other tendency breaker, in my opinion. Jack Indries was reintroduced to the passing game. Not so much. I mean, look, he's been there, but it felt like he became a focal point at times in this contest, and he hasn't necessarily been so. And they were Texas was rewarded by doing so, right? The catch and run that put Texas on the doorstep to go up by 2 scores. That was big time run and catch by Jack Indries. All right, do you have anything else? What do you want to say?
I just want to add to Jack Indries' conversation. Great point. You had 3 explosive pass plays of 20-plus yards. 2 of them were Jack Indries plays. That was that 50-something yarder where he's an offset wing, and they run a switch release, and great play by him, a catch, and then a great yard run after the catch. And then you had the targets to motion. I think it's a 21-yard reception. Almost run like a boomerang route, I think it is, and ends up being a great play by Arch to keep the play alive. And that was an explosive play. I think the other one actually was your touchdown that Arch threw on the scramble drill, your other 20-plus yarder. So to your point, I mean, that was his best game of the season. And I think the two players who benefited the most from Texas having their best run game of the season was Arch and Jack Indries. Think about the tight end position when your run game is working that well. That's why he can have those big explosive plays.
Linebackers have to suck up to protect the run.
They're the suckers then. They're easy suckers at that point because all you need is for them to occupy their eyes for a half a second or a second, or to take a false step here or there. That's all that tight end needs. And that's what Jack Indries had. Sometimes he was running wide open. Sometimes he had an extra step on his defenders. He's definitely the one who benefited the most, and I think Arch probably benefited the second most, because look at his first half, the second half, when they were pass heavy as opposed to when they went run heavy, and then Arch could just be the complementary aspect to the offense. Right? What do you average? Almost over 15 yards per attempt, something like that.
No.
Yep.
Before we let you go, we also want to say thank you to Duck Camp again. Again, use that promo code ontexas25 for 25% off of duckcamp.com. This isn't just hunting and fishing apparel. It's also everyday wear. I'm wearing one of their hats right now. Rod's wearing one of their shirts. You guys check it out if you don't mind. Again, that's duckcamp.com. Use promo code ontexas25 for 25% off. For Rod Babers and our producer, Matt Hutchinson, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been Second Watch with Rod B. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.